the trait is widely considered to be the gold standard of vegan argumentation.
I haven't seen an argument demonstrating that there's a morally substantive difference between a human and an animal that would justify taking away something like the right to life from an animal. So can you name a morally substantive difference?
My question to you would be, if we swap all the traits true of animals to match those of humans, is there any trait that once switched would justify making humans into hamburgers?
Oh no, we're doing the name the trait game. This is like the impossible to defeat veganism argument.
But should we continue to employ it so often? Does it ever actually work? Today, I'm sharing why I hate name the trait, why I think we should move on, and how it harms and hinders the vegan message. Before we get into the video, I want to clarify that I'm questioning the utility of name the trait in the context of effective vegan advocacy, not philosophical debates. I have seen YouTubers like Ask Yourself and Vegan Gains wield name the trait effectively to highlight the inconsistencies of their debate opponents. However, in street outreach, it just doesn't work. The goal of the philosophical debate is to test logical consistency, and the goal of vegan advocacy is to inspire and influence someone to go vegan. With the latter goal in mind, name the trait fails, and this video explores why. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Name the trait originated with Ask Yourself, and I'll let him explain it here.
My case for veganism is pretty simple. I would say that if you hold the position that it's okay to stab an animal to death for food, it's not okay to stab a human to death for food, that there has to be some difference between the two that actually justifies that difference of treatment. So I would ask you, what is it that's true of the animal that if it were true of the human would justify stabbing the human to death for food?
When he describes it, it sounds great, logically sound, rock solid. But does name the trait propel carnists down the vegan path, or is it more likely to backfire? My primary issue with name the trait is that you're trying to guide people toward a certain conclusion, but you end up doing the opposite. The goal is to highlight that we're similar to animals, so why are we asking people to enumerate our differences? Imagine my goal was to persuade you to marry your girlfriend, and to do that, I asked you to list all of her negative traits. I can say the point is to show you that none of those negative traits would warrant a breakup in the hopes that you'll be persuaded to propose, but we can see that it would have the opposite effect. Instead of thinking, oh, she isn't quite ambitious enough, but that's okay because I love her, you would think, wow, she's not ambitious. Do I really want to be with an apathetic underachiever for the rest of my life? I'm willing to bet that by the end of that conversation, you would be less likely to propose.
I think it's better to I feel like almost let them make a positive case for what matters rather than inviting them to do the very human rationalizing thing to find a reason why they shouldn't care.
Highlighting our differences creates more differences and makes it harder for non-vegans to empathize with animals. Instead, we should emphasize our similarities. Ask people if animals shiver when they get cold, if they experience hunger like we do, if they can feel emotions like happiness, sadness, anger, and fear. When we elucidate our similarities, we allow people to empathize with animals, and from that empathy comes the desire to avoid stabbing animals for a sandwich. The vegan position has nothing to do with viewing animals and humans as the same. There are diverse opinions on what the vegan position is, but most people use the standard definition, which is to exclude harm toward animals as far as practicable and possible. You can also use a rights-based framework, which is that animals should have negative rights, or some vegans say that animal rights are a logical extension of human rights. Vegans differ in how they view animals in relation to humans. Some vegans think that animals and humans are equivalent, but a lot of vegans think that humans are above animals, but that still doesn't justify humans killing animals for comfort and convenience. I personally don't think it matters. The degree to which someone values someone else should not determine whether that individual is granted rights. If you gave me the choice to kill my sister or a random person, I would kill the rando because I value my sister more highly. That doesn't mean the other person shouldn't have the same rights as my sister. Rights should be granted based on objective characteristics like sentience, not personal value systems. Name the Trait becomes so invested in the non-vegan's value system, and I understand why in the context of debates, but during vegan advocacy, you want to show that the animals deserve rights whether the non-vegan thinks so or not. They deserve rights because they're conscious and cognizant, because they have unique personalities, and because it's not their fault that they were born into the body of a chicken instead of a human. A human's personal value system should not determine whether or not animals deserve rights. Meat eaters also use the idea that vegans think humans and animals are equal as a way to discount veganism.
I don't think any argument can be made that animal lives are as important as human lives. And if you really truly believe that, if you really truly in your heart believe that an animal life is as important as a human life, then I believe that there is something, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, I don't believe that you really think that.
Name the Trait is confusing. When you're doing vegan advocacy, you're not talking to people who understand the intricacies of debates. You're talking to the average human. Average humans have IQs between 85 and 115. You also need to consider that just talking about veganism makes people even dumber.
Trees are fascinating. I've heard people say, well, the mouse has a beating heart and the tree does not, or plants do not, and animals do. And I said to myself, well, let me think this through. If you cloak a tree, does it not suffocate?
Average level intelligence plus motivated reasoning makes it very difficult to run Name the Trait on people you meet during outreach. Part of the confusion comes because meat eaters don't understand what the vegan is looking for. What counts as a trait? Size, shape, intelligence, species? Trait is defined as a distinguishing quality, characteristic, or a genetically determined characteristic. Using the second definition, we can clearly see that species should count as an acceptable trait, but the vegan will reject that as not morally relevant. Who gets to decide which traits are morally relevant? I personally don't believe species is morally relevant. That's part of why I'm vegan. But meat eaters do think species is morally relevant. That's why they're not vegan.
I'm asking you, what is the morally substantive difference between a human and an animal, where it's okay to violate an animal's rights, but it's not okay to violate a human's rights? And you've given me a few answers, but you keep walking back your claims.
Yeah, look, I don't have an answer because I don't fully understand the question. I thought my answer was
So what
enough,
clarifies as a morally substantial, whatever the rest of that was?
You can tell a racist that the color of someone's skin is arbitrary, but they don't see it as arbitrary. That's why they're racist.
Someone can define what they consider moral as any fucking thing they want.
During activism, you don't have much time. Most people will grant you 15 to 20 minutes and then you're never going to see them again. Explaining the premise of Name the Trait and correcting them along the way is a waste of time. If you're not sure how to use your time during outreach effectively, check out this handy page from Pax Fauna where they tell you which points need to be addressed. Every second counts. Name the Trait usually devolves into insane hypotheticals. I understand that hypotheticals have value in the context of debates. They're an excellent way to test someone's logical consistency and shine light on issues in an objective way. However, it's important to talk about whether these hypotheticals are in good taste or bad taste, whether they're effective or off-putting. People already hate vegans, so we have to try extra hard to get them to take us seriously. When we talk about eating mentally challenged children, we're not making ourselves look better. We're making ourselves look like out-of-touch assholes. When someone leaves a conversation with me on the street, I don't want them going home to their partner to tell them that they got into a conversation with a vegan where the vegan was asking them if it was okay to Holocaust mentally challenged children. I want them to say that they've had an honest, difficult discussion about the harm they've inadvertently created through their actions. I want them to say that they now understand why vegans fight so hard for animal rights. I want them to feel feel seen and heard and like I was listening to their points and not trying to box them into a position that I could easily destroy. I feel frustrated when I see someone discussing space aliens while I'm thinking about the real suffering of actual animals here on Earth. Pigs are screaming in gas chambers while they're burned alive from the inside out, and we're talking about Vulcans? Really? Let's focus on getting non-vegans to see that their real actions have real consequences. The animals already don't feel real to non-vegans, but by speaking up about this issue, we can show them that this is a serious issue that needs significant action. Crazy hypotheticals trivialize the vegan message, and it's time to move on. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, and I'm curious to hear what you thought. Am I totally off base? Am I right? Do you love Name the Trait? Do you hate Name the Trait? Let me know down below. And as always, special thanks to my morally superior patrons, and I'll see you in the next video.